You got only what you say, 2 minutes. What happens here? First, you got to get hold of good fish, which you'll get from a good fisherman.
Yeah.
And then you don't rush with your fish in a smokehouse. You should have a smokehouse on a picture for a moment. You don't rush there to say, well, I got fish, we'll smoke it. You have to take care of your food properly. So fish has to be in a deep freeze for at least 4 or 5 days to, say, kill the germs if there is some. And then when you get that process done, you have it in a freezer like this one was for 4 days or maybe 5 days. That time we are freezing fish, we get it from fishermen whenever, 2 months later, 5 days later, or a year later, you have a fish that's healthy, it's protected with ice, frozen, and then wrapped for freezer purposes. So at that time when it's unthawed and you have a time to deal with the fish, you want to clean the guts, dehead it,
Yeah.
and then guts we pull out. Of course, I got fish over here that's not frozen that I can deal with it right away, right now. Looking at it, this is coho fish, this one here. And what I do is clean the guts, as the people here done it already for me.
Yeah.
Then I peel that. I have to peel that one for, at least that's my convincement, that when I get rid of this,
Take off all the
scales is off, that the salt and smoke preservatives are penetrating somewhat better, or a lot better when that is removed. Besides, we're not that hungry to eat that. So we clean it up nicely. And if you were a little bit over that side, I don't know if you want to be, or side, because I'm gonna show you, not only can I do it with a knife here like that, clean the fish. Watch out. I'm gonna sprinkle it and you're gonna get wet. So when I have a jet on it, it will actually take the scales right off. It's gonna peel all the unwanted. And then I have more tools, and I take a spoon or some sort of a butter knife, and I'll clean up all the blood from inside, because blood, when you holding a food into preservative process, blood is sometimes bad news. It will start spoiling your food, and there's no food to enjoy actually. So we clean up this remains from the guts. We clean that, peel whatever we can now, because if not now, we have to do it later. We don't like to chew on that. Okay, so you can't get every little bit of that, I would call it sack for the gut. But what happens, we clean it up later when it's out of smokehouse. Sylvia will usually scrape that down. And when it's clean about as it is right now, watch out, I'll just do a little more here. Get rid of blood. And then you do the filleting. Well, my best knife is this one, I think. So that time you got the strip that's ready for salting. Maybe I'll even after I salted and washed it again and all that, I'll still find a moment, grab the knife and get the clean up on that.
Mm-hmm.
So usually, for my purpose, I guess, so I feel that I can leave spine in one side, one half, and no spine on the other. Some people prefer to cut spine right out and take it to the smokehouse. I find that this part here is protecting my fish, because when it comes out of smokehouse, quite often we have to trim a little bit more, and if there's a little bit of a smoke on it, or too much I meant to say, you want to remove it and scrape it off, and then that's a job. This way, after it's smoked, you get the knife into it and peel the spine out and find a healthy fish right behind it. So fish like this should go in the salt after it's washed, nice clean. Goes in salt for about, I say 5 hours. It depends on a lot of things. Is it 5 or 5.5? 5.5 or 6 hours will give you more salty fish, and some people like that. Some people don't like that salt, and they'll say, well, I don't like it because the salt is, or health doesn't permit to eat all the salt, so you have to regulate that by whoever you're sharing your fish with. So
what's the next step after this one?
Okay, this next after this one is going in the salt I was talking about.
Yes.
Now for salting, the coarse salt, and then I use parsley, fresh green parsley from my garden, and that parsley is put in, and salt is plentiful, of lots of salt, and it's like I said, 5 hours, could be 5.5. Is it more than 6? Has to be bigger fish, and it will do fine. But if it's small fish, more than 6 hours, you're too deep in the salt. So say 5 hours later, or 4.5, you bring it from the salt. I scrape all the excessive salt away, grab a hose, and I was washing with a jet. There's a shower, there's a mist. One guy told me use a mist, but I don't have that patience, so I use a flat or chisel, some heads for this device will have a chisel or fan, and I'll wash that salt down to and these fins can be cut away because they're no good on my plate. It's just wasting time to have them like that. So I would cut some fins out, maybe not all of them.
So today's a little bit warmer than you typically want to be.
Today is not the day to do the fish in any serious way.
Yeah.
Today is the day to give your guys, younger people, demo.
Yeah.
And remember, wet days, rainy days, that's when fish is very much in a process. So after you get from the salt, like I said, bringing it from the container where I salt them, I would scrape that excessive salt. Then I take a spray and I will wash it, all the salt off of it, and no more salt, because it didn't melt all of it. There was lots of salt when it was in a container for preparing fish. So you clean it up. Because it was in salt for 5-6 hours, there's a lot of salt in it. So one by one, again, I would cut the fins out, the big ones at least, and then again wash it. And so fish been salted, fish been washed, fish is ready to go into smokehouse, but not yet. It needs to, and that's my experience, that you need to hang them on the hooks and let that water drip away before you take it in the smokehouse.
So how long do you get
About
it to dry?
4, 5, 6 hours.
Okay.
Is it 1 or 2 hours more? Sometimes I leave it overnight. If I'm washing fish out of a salt, there's no extra couple hours and still okay. It's gonna be waste of fish. Within half an hour, you can be a little bit too much salt, or you wash it a little bit better and all that. But I would say if you left it overnight hanging in a basement, temperature hopefully less than 15 Celsius, it will give a little color, almost like if it was in smokehouse for a couple hours. But all the water dripped away. Some people will introduce sugar or other additives to improve their preferred taste. But fish just like that, after being salted, and I like to add a little parsley in it, is tasting fine.
Okay.
Nobody came by complaining. That's the way I judge. So say 5-6 hours or 8 hours or 9 after, you want to take that fish into smokehouse, and we have a smokehouse right here. It's not that nice, but it does the purpose. It's off the ground, and I have a little firebox in there. It will smolder some sawdust, hardwood sawdust. All the fruit producing trees are okay to use in a sawdust or chips for a smokehouse. It has a flavoring. If you use some average evergreen is not recommended, but alder, around here lots of it, is recommended. So that's all about fish that I know. Say depends on the weather again. You can have a good tasty fish out of smokehouse in say 2-3 days if the weather is perfect, but 4 days is average. Sometimes it takes more than 4 days to cure the fish. Depends if it's too much rain. Wetness is not really helping. But
so you like it. So you
dry
like
wind, sometimes you get dry wind,
Yeah.
and it will give you a boost.
So you like cool weather, but not too moist.
Yeah, if it's below freezing, it's not that great.
Yeah.
If it's say 5-6 above, 5-6 Celsius, it's very good.
Okay.
And if there's a dry wind, that's excellent.
Perfect.
So what are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, so after fish is cleaned and say drip dry, and this one here is not that well dry, but we don't have lots of time right now. But drip dry might mean, a couple, more than a few hours. I said 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. So what we do with the fish, after it's washed, we get it well salted. I do have some parsley, that's my own add-on kind of flavoring, and I take a little crunching on it to be able to get the juices out of the parsley, and I will have a salt heavy on top, and I put more salt, and you're not worrying about putting too much salt, because as you salt them both all the way full length, but we are doing what we're doing right now, that can be laid in the layers like this. Of course, salt has to be heavy all the way to the end, and then we let it sit for say 6 hours, 5.5, depends on the size of a fish. And the men with repeat do this will learn just exactly how long. It depends on the fish. So anyway, when the fish is all set, lots of salt in it, we take it. I usually grab this parsley and I push that salt away, and I grab where's my pump here, water hose. I need to have it mist or this guy flat will do. And I want to get rid of excessive salt, because fish sitting in the salt for say 5 or 6 hours, she'll soak up enough salt that we don't need any more. So that salt on the surface that's still there, we get rid of it. And then we have a hook, and I have a professional hook, and I will set that ready for smokehouse. One. Wash the excessive salt. At that time, we got 2 slabs of fish. Sometimes, if I'm too much in a hurry, want to put the fish on the hook, I get the bandage thereafter, because those hooks are sharp. So fish is well salted, and it has to drip dry. We don't rush in the smokehouse.
Yeah. How long does it dry?
It takes about 5-6 hours. If it's 7-8, you're not having a problem because of it. Water has to drip. And then when it's say 6 or 7-8 hours in a reasonably cold temperature, should be definitely less than 15, around 9, 12, perfect. 11, you can do it, because salt is taking care of your fish and preservative. So at that time, when it's drip dry, it will change the color. It will get its own glaze, and it goes in the smokehouse, and at that time you can make a smoke right away as soon as you get the fish. Okay, so we take a fish into smokehouse, and it's all prepared. We got little rods in there to hang them. I got professional hooks for it, and I hang them over above my little box that I will light up and make a smoke pretty soon. Okay, we'll have this guy ready somewhere here. So I set, and I can put about 15 heads of fish. That means 30 slices like this. And I can set them all around, come down, and I got some gear here. Hopefully it works, because sometimes we need new bottle for propane, and we light up to start the burning sawdust. Oh yes, excellent. And here you go. It's and I have this old tiles here. Sometimes I have to block because too much air passage makes a flame, and we don't want the flame. We want the kind of smoldering situation here. It's not gonna work. This guy here might. Now, we don't need a flame, we need a smoke. And I hope you can catch it on your camera. It's not doing that well yet, but I can see some smoke happening, and that's what it takes to, you don't need factory chimney full of smoke. You need some.
Yep.
And that's probably enough, like that, or touch more, perfect. And when I put that box with the sawdust, and it's not big box, as you can see, even if I take the style out of the way, that box is fairly small.
Yeah.
I feel that, and sometimes it's gonna burn 12 to 20 hours. And when I have it burning 12 hours, I know my smoke is going just fine. One time, or maybe more than once, I had a busy time. You can't watch it all day. You set the all bits and pieces in the right place.
Yeah.
And if the sawdust is dry and the weather is nice and warm or dry, and it's going to burn sawdust too fast, and that's what we don't want, because too fast burning sawdust means spoiling fish, getting crust on the surface rather than slow smoking.
So I got a question for you. So what's the difference between a hot smoke and a cold smoke, and why do you like cold
Okay,
smoke
this
better?
would be considered cold smoke.
Yeah.
There's no flame, I said a little while ago, no flames to have, but some flame will happen a little bit. But this smoke that comes out of that box is about what we want, and that's a cold smoke. If it was hot smoke, there's a unit you can buy it cheaper than you can build them.
Yep.
And you can put some chips underneath. Inches above, you put your fish, and you start your fire, and 4 hours later you got fish on a plate. So faster process, but myself and a lot of people I heard, slow process or cold smoke is better results, more enjoyable fish.
Okay. So how long does it take to cold smoke?
Cold smoke will take about 3-4 days on the average. Can require more if a fish is bigger. If weather is not so perfect, it takes a little more time. If it's a perfect weather condition, reasonably cold and little dry wind, not rain, you can get it done good enough in 2 days or 2.5 days. Because you get that, if you get that dry wind and you're in the back helping out, it does it fast. So that's that. And then 4 days later, or whenever we think that the fish is ready, we bring it out of the smokehouse, and you have a camera there to show, and we can actually think that all is just right. And what we did is most people will sample it, and I actually had a slice of this one sampling. And I was saying before, a perfect fish will not crack like that, and it will give you a nice slab of fish. It will be well cured. This one here showed little injury in a process, I'm not sure where, before it got into my possession. With the injury, that fish had when I filleted it cracked here, and it didn't cure 110% right across. So some problems, doesn't matter what you do, you'll find some problems and setbacks.
Yep.
So we'll take this in the kitchen and we'll try it in there.
Okay, thanks.
And those will be individually packed.
Oh, so that's what you do prior to packing them.
Yeah.
So just get some nice chunkies.
Yeah.
That's a nice chunk of meat too.
Uh,
How big do you think this fish was?
Oh my gosh. Ivan would be the better judge of that, because he's the one that basically, you can imagine the head and the gills on this, and then the tail, and that gives you an idea how big the fish was.
So what are we cutting off there?
Just the edges that have curled off, and they've been absorbing a lot of the smoke. You just don't like the smoke. And it's got a film on it. You want to get to the fresh meat rather than the film. So you trim off the edge. And then you have to those are little things that I clean up and use with scrambled eggs.
Oh, nice.
Makes beautiful scrambled eggs.
So that part would be a little bit drier, right?
That part is a little bit drier and a little bit saltier, especially the tail end.
Yep.
Because the fatter part will absorb the salt equally as the tail end. But because the tail end is so much smaller and skinnier, it'll be saltier.
I gotcha.
So now,
And what's the benefit of the curled knife?
it's not really so much the curled knife. I can use this knife as well,
Yeah.
but they've got to be quite sharp,
Yeah.
and because otherwise you get a lot of your meat.
So this is where we're separating the backbone.
We're separating the backbone,
Ah.
but if you look here, this will tell you where the ribs end.
Oh, yeah.
And you go under that little line of fat to cut the ribs off or fillet them off. And you get to the backbone. Take your filleting knife. Just make sure you stand clear so you don't get a poke with the filleting knife. And you run it under the ribs to...
Making sure we don't mix any human blood in with the...
Yeah!
all your little fingers and all your little toes at the
Well,
end.
that's why I turned the knife away from me.
Yeah.
And I try to keep my fingers out of the way, keep them on top of the fish, on top of the bone, while the knife is under the bones.
So what's the most important thing to keep in mind while you're filleting a fish? Or at least taking the backbone off.
To try and get as close to the ribs as possible, because otherwise you have a lot of wasted meat.
Yep.
Mind you, we don't waste it because I scrape off as much as I can off the ribs.
Yep.
And like I say, I use it for scrambled eggs and sandwich spread and things like that.
Yep.
So there's very little
left over for the seagulls?
Very little left over. There's bone and stuff in there, so it's not really worth all the time.
Yep.
See, here's a bone. It's not worth all the time to clean it off.
Right.
But once that's done...
So when you cut a fish in half, is there one side of the fish that has the backbone and the other side of the fish you don't have to do this whole process?
You still have to do the process, but not quite as extensive, because the other side of the fish will have only one side of the ribs.
Oh, okay. So you only have to go
so you
halfway
don't
through.
have the backbone.
Yeah.
You've only got the half side of the ribs.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier to clean.
Yeah.
But the bones on the upper side are a lot harder to get to.
Yeah.
You have to sometimes take a slice off the top, the skin that's formed or the tissue that's smoked and is drier, you have to slice it off to get to the bone. Because when you're slicing it for serving, you don't want the little bones in there.
Right, of course.
So, now we go for the small bones. I first check right here. There's one.
Yep.
There you go. Check if there's another piece lower down. There we go. And then it's basically just the ones that you see, you'll usually see them in the fatter part.
Yep.
They'll come up more to the surface, and you just take them with the tweezers and pull them out.
So it's not as painful a process as I would have imagined.
Sometimes they don't come out this easy. Sometimes they're actually like almost, see, like this one, attached to the back of the skin, the inside of the skin of the fish, and you really have to tug hard. The bone will break sometimes, and I have to dig in there to get it. And which, you know, doesn't always look nice for the slab of meat. But it's a process that has to be done, whether before you freeze it and pack it or after, before serving.
Yeah.
See, now I can't see the bones, but I can usually judge where they are from the distances that the first bones were at. The back bones will be the same distance or very similar. So I try and feel for them. But they're deep in the meat, and I have to
do a little bit of digging.
Otherwise, you get them. When you're slicing, you get them into your meat, and you can, some people, it really bothers them under their teeth.
Yeah, I typically don't eat canned salmon for that reason.
Yeah. And see, this one is really hard to get to. And now most of them will be just disintegrated from here on in. You can usually tell. But if you're not sure, you take your filleting knife and you take a small little thin.
So that's a sample for the cook?
That's a sample for the cook. And you'll usually see little white film where the bone is. And once the bone is this soft and pliable and stuff, you know there's nothing more further back.
Nice.
And you're safe. Take off the dry end, the tail. Take off the side, trim the sides.
So this one's a little bit easier just because the backbone's not on.
Yeah.
And we just have to trim off the half of a rib cage.
That's right. Take a good knife and just under the ribs, hold the fish to steady it. And just get under the ribs. Make sure your fingers are always away from the knife because it will slip, and there have been numerous accidents, including me, where you get a good chunk of finger, you know, sliced in half. There. I take my filleting knife and turn it up towards. Sometimes the bone will cut, but this is a portion I've not trimmed yet. So here we go. There. There's nothing much there. I still have a bone here. And here. You can feel it with your fingers if it's there. Even if you can't see it. But I knew it was there because I felt it under the knife. There we go. Now I can't see these bones here, and I
Yeah.
can't feel them either because there's quite a, how could I say, deep, dry portion. So I might have to just take my filleting knife and take a small, thin layer
Yeah.
of the dry stuff off the top, and here's your bones. And that's what you pull out
Nice.
once you've taken the... And if you run your fingers along there, you will feel the bones, and that's what you take your tweezers to and pull them out. It's all a matter of just learning as you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's ever shown me, but you know, I've heard people the way they do it, and I've taken the lesson to heart. Every time you do one, you'll learn something, that how to do something different to make it easier on yourself.
Yep.
There you go.
Nice.
This one's going to be difficult, but I got it. There's one in between. There, see? You can tell if you've missed a bone usually by the distance between. They're quite evenly spaced. So if there's a, big space between two bones, you know you've missed one in between. And it's getting down to the wire. The smaller they get, the softer they get, and then they just melt into the meat.
Yeah.
There, that's about it.
So now you have the slab.
Now you have the slab, and you slice it into whatever one-time use portion you think you'll need. The bigger fish I will cut into 3, or sometimes you're giving it to people who are single,
Right.
and you don't want them to waste a lot of fish, so you cut it into small portions, single serving. And if they have company and they want more fish, they just use more packages, right? So that's about it. That's all there is to it.
Let's take a look at the final product. So one thing I didn't ask you is, what is all the equipment that's necessary to, debone and go through all the process?
You need at least one good sharp paring knife, small knife, to get under the bones. Once you're under the bones, you need one good filleting knife to scrape the bones off, but leave most of the meat on the slab. And you need a good pair of fish tweezers. And if you find one with a nice hook, nice bend, they're better than another one where it's got less of a bend.
Right.
Okay.
That's what you're saying.
These will be good for bones that are easy to pull out.
Right.
This is one where the bones actually are hard to pull out. And sometimes you have to fish for them. And these are my favorite.
Nice.
They work the best. So, and that's it, a good cutting board. You can put a little bit of damp paper towel under your cutting board so it doesn't slip all over. And it'll stay still, and you've got it.
Nice.
Who knows? Anyway, there's not always up to a guy that's going to take a fish through the smokehouse to come perfect. It has to come from a fisherman
Yep.
to my hand in a good quality, so I can carry on with good quality.
Yes.
Because good fish, healthy fish, fresh fish is always we want, and then we can produce a decent product. Because if the fish has been around too long on a deck or somewhere where no ice was protecting the fish, it becomes a little concern. And sometimes we look at the fish and what we're gonna do with it. Well, it looks okay, maybe not perfect, but we still carry on and get it through the process. So anyway, don't blame always Ivan for not being so perfect.
So what are you looking for in a good fish when you buy it?
Firmness.
Yeah.
Good
But
color.
when I'm buying a fish, so it's usually money and a trust. I gotta trust that fisherman to handle his product with high respect, because it is food. He's got to respect me for holding dollars, but we don't have that opportunity. That's he's got 5 or 6 heads of fish in a bag or bucket that's spread around. I'll test them.
Yep.
So we have to depend on honesty of a fisherman.
Yep.
And
So what are the things that you have to look for, on the negative side that might cause a
quite
a
often,
bad
even
situation?
fisherman is not always to take a slap for not being perfect, because he's fighting with seals. Seals wants a fish. Whale wants a fish.
Yeah.
And quite often when they have that, when they have their nets in the ocean to catch that fish, a seal wants to grab some, because poor fish is already in a cage kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's in a net. And then a seal wants it, but can't pull it because it's a net.
Oh, I
So-
gotcha.
And you'll
have some injury to the fish.
You'll have a bruise from maybe a seal bite or something,
Yeah.
and that we will cut out and eliminate.
We gotta waste, and sometimes
yeah,
bruise is beyond repair, so we have to probably waste the fish
Yep.
too. So a lot of times it's you gotta know food. I always look at it with high respect and make sure it's in good, healthy shape, because if it's not, I'm the first one to be on the lookout for problems.
Oh, good.
So yeah, it's like that.
you can see on the
There you go.
outside
There, you see, there's a
The-
wound that fish was.
from the bruise.
All right.
You look
And
on
it's
the
right through.
outside,
Oh,
and
so
there
you
it
can
is.
see it on the outside. Nice.
Yes, that's where it was bitten, and
Like poor fish
it's
has to
begun
fight.
to heal, but the bruise is still there.
Yeah.
And
Poor fish is fighting for survival.
just like the
Got
rest of
escape
us,
from whale, it's got escape from seal, and who knows? Arriba, arriba, yada.
So Ivan, when we look at these fish right here, which would we say is a good fish versus a fish that
This
might be
one is-
challenged?
This is in a better shape, if not in a perfect. A good fish, when you start with good fish and you take all the step-by-step proper procedures and all that, you'll have a good result. Sometimes, like I said, fish might be hanging around too long without the ice, without proper protection, and becomes a little bit iffy. Like this one here, I'm looking at it, and it might not be good to hang on to that fish too long in the freezer or fridge, because it's not going to get better. It's still fresh is good when it's coming out of smokehouse. If it's not perfect, it's still consumable.
Yeah. So when you're looking at this one, it's very candied. And
This
darker.
one here is cured somewhat better, and a lot of people like dry fish rather than a little bit moisty.
Oh, okay.
I love one like this.
Yeah.
It has some moist, but not too much. And this one here, I look at it, it's probably more moisty or didn't
So this
complete
one's so this one's maybe a little too dry. This one's a little too moist, and this one's just right.
I think that's for my taste. A lot of people have different preference.
Yep.